Ready? Okay. Last part we're going to talk is about personal things, your family, your sort of personal views of the war and what happened, and things about your family. Were other members of your family involved in the war effort in any way?
No. I've just got one brother. He was 10 years younger than me, and he died about a year and a half ago.
Had your father been in the armed services,
No.
or aunts or uncles, or anybody?
No, Dad had just gotten his draft notice during the First World War, and he got it, I think, the same day the war ended, so he didn't have to go.
When you entered, we already talked about you didn't know Katie. Did you have a girl friend when you went overseas?
No,
From high school?
No, when I went overseas, no, I didn't. I had a girlfriend in high school, but when I went overseas, no, I didn't have any girlfriend.
So when you were writing letters home, or not writing letters home, they were only to your parents?
Right, yeah.
What did your parents and family think about you getting drafted in general and about going into the infantry?
Well, initially I wasn't going into the infantry. I was going to ASTP, see.
So you were initially going to college.
So I was initially going to college, right. And they didn't have any idea I'd be in combat, and I really don't know what the reaction was when they found out that I was, because I came home, I had a furlough shortly before we went overseas, but they knew I was going. But that, I didn't, I mean, I'm sure they weren't happy about it, but they never said, I wish you were going.
From New York, when you were in the university, did you have a choice before you were going to go, or was
No.
you were just assigned the 104th?
Right, we were assigned the 104th, right.
So you didn't have a choice between Marines or artillery or ordnance or anything like that?
No, not at that point. Earlier, when I went in, if I didn't want to go to ASTP, I could have gone to something else, but
Do you have any lasting impressions of the French or Dutch or German civilians that you encountered when you were in Europe?
The Dutch civilians were really nice. Most of them could speak English. And the Germans were, well, as an example, the Bitterfeld was where we had our last battles, last town we took. But, and it was the first town that we got into where they had flush toilets and running water, because there was a poison gas factory there, and it had never been bombed. So, when we were taking, and the house we were assigned to take, we took, without a shot being fired, went down in the basement. There were all kinds of civilians down in that basement. It was also kind of a bomb shelter. And there were a lot of civilians. And we ran into civilians all the time, but and they were friendly. But the day that I was talking about, when that was Bitterfeld, when I walked in and there was 5 German soldiers standing there. But we continued, and at the last house that was complete end of the street, man came out to meet us and invited us in. And he and his wife were the only ones there, but they had fixed a meal and for us. They knew we were coming, obviously. Yeah, and he could talk some broken English and you know tell us what. But yeah, they fixed a meal for the the Americans, and we're really glad we were there.
Did you have any impression of the French your short time there?
Not
Or
much.
in Paris when you went on R&R, or were you mostly around Americans?
No, when I went on R&R, you weren't weren't exposed too much to it. Other than the store that I bought some perfume for my mother in, but other than that, later on, we went to Europe. Katie and I went to Europe and didn't like the French at all. They really, God, they're arrogant.
My dad said the same thing, and he never went back because he didn't like.
No,
He never liked the French
I wouldn't
from
either.
his time over there.
I didn't like them either.
What did you miss most about Wisconsin when you were overseas?
I don't. Not being here, I guess, because truthfully, there's a lot of Germany is like Wisconsin. I think that's why a lot of Germans settled in this area, because it's a lot like Germany.
Did you ever consider making a career in the Army after you returned to the States?
No, this is another story.
Good.
When towards the end of the war, I don't know how much before, the first sergeant came to me and asked me if I wanted to go to OCS. And I says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, they're going to have an OCS in over here. I don't know exactly where, but they're going to, and they want to train some people that they think would make officers." And I said, "Well, you mean that'll get me out of here?" if that's the case, you bet. All right. So he says, "You're going to have to take a test." So I took the test, and apparently I passed it. And then I had to take an oral test, and that was tougher. But apparently I got it because they scheduled me for a physical. And this is another story into the physical. I went back to take the physical, and
This is in Germany.
this was in Germany. And there was a guy ahead of me, and and they were drawing blood. And this guy ahead of me was kind of a burly guy. He looked like he worked out a lot. So the guy tried to take blood, couldn't do it. He did it about 3 times. Never got any blood. The guy never said a word. And the guy said, and this, I mean, he was really nervous by this time. And the guy that was taking the blood and said, he said, I'll try it again. I hope I can get it. He says, "You better try it. You better get it this time." Those are the only words he ever said, but it was ominous, you know. And he did. The guy finally got some blood out of him. And then I got up there and I said, "How many tries do you think it's going to take?" He said, I'm going to do it the first time. I'm going to do it. And he did. But anyhow, so I must have passed the physical, but I've never heard anything more about it. And a couple days before I was to be discharged in San Luis Obispo, first sergeant came and said, he says, I don't think you're going to be discharged. And I says, what the hell are you talking about? And he said, well, I just got orders have just been cut for you to go to Fort Benning for OCS training. I said, I'm not going to OCS training. He says, well, if the orders are cut, you got to obey those orders. And I said, Jesus Christ, I'm not. And then I was getting mad. And he says, no. He says, don't worry about it. I'll cancel the orders. But I wanted to know. He says, but think about it. He says, if you decide to stay in the Army, he said, you're going in now. That's not going to be a temporary commission. That's going to be a regular commission. He said, hell, you could be a general in a few years. I don't want to be a general. I don't give a shit. Just get me the hell out of here.
So you were happy just to be out of the Army?
Oh yeah.
It never occurred to you to...
No, it never did.
It would never occur to you to do that.
Not until years later when I was, times were tough, I thought, and I would think, Jesus Christ, I could be a bird colonel by now.
Did you consider yourself to be a religious person when you went into the Army?
Oh yeah.
Did your experience in Europe change your faith in any way?
No, marrying her did. 'Cause I was a Methodist, a lukewarm Methodist, but I joined the Catholic Church. But yeah, I carried a Bible with me all the time. In fact, I think it's still just a little Bible, but I always carried it. Never read it, but I always carried it.
Did you ever go to services over there?
Once in a great while. A lot of times you didn't have, and if you had it, you never knew who the chaplain was going to be that was going to give the services.
Did any of your war experience stay with you after you returned home in terms of dreams or flashbacks? Do you still have any?
No, I don't have any anymore.
Did you used to?
Once in a while. But,
when you slept?
It wasn't so much a flashback as well, it's like I said, I don't really want to say this, but I had so many close calls that, or it could have gone either way. And sometimes those come back to me, and I thank God that, the choice was the right one instead of the wrong one, I've never had any bad dreams or nightmares or anything like that.
When you go to your family, when you go to these reunions with your Army family,
Yeah.
do those bring back more memories too, or not?
Oh,
Are
yeah,
they just
if we get
are
into,
they friends of
if
the
we
present?
get into a discussion sometimes, why that brings back some stuff that I'd forgotten completely about. But it doesn't happen too often because most of the time you're not talking about that. You're talking about current events and what's going on in your life, and And I was one of those people that always thought, when I get old, by God, I'm not going to talk about my ailments, and like a lot of people do. Well, you do anyhow.
Why do you think that so many World War II veterans don't talk much about their war experiences?
Well, it's like I said, I couldn't figure that, because I said I always thought I would, and I didn't, and then it finally kind of dawned on me that it, because I used to think about that quite a bit, and it finally I determined, or it dawned on me, that it's hard to talk about some of this stuff with somebody that doesn't know what it's like or hasn't been there. It's difficult to communicate, they don't dismiss it, but they just, I don't know.
I asked my dad that same question.
Yeah,
His answer was exactly the same.
yeah.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, it's just, it's difficult. And then when we do get together, we don't talk a lot about it either.
So you spent several hours talking about it with us.
A lot more than.
Have you been uncomfortable talking about
No.
World War
not
II
at
with
all.
us?
No, not at all.
Have you ever had these kinds of conversations with your kids?
No. To some extent, what I was talking about with Kelly, our youngest daughter, when she was in the hospital with something, and I can't remember what it was, and she asked questions and took notes because she wanted to know some stuff, but that was, probably a half, 3/4 of an hour conversation.
Well, that concludes what I'd prepared.
Good.
If you have any lasting story you want to tell, that would be fun.
I can't think of anything. I didn't finish.
Oh,
this
the other one.
Well, no, but it's about Maury, because then it wasn't until later that I found out the rest of the story. He didn't have a gun, but he got one someplace. I don't know. It was a German gun, and he had moved Patsy into a hole, a shell hole or something that was protected, and then he saw two Germans, and they started coming towards him, so he fired at them, and he thought they were going to get him, and I may not be telling the story exactly right, but anyhow, he drove off the Germans. Then he dragged Kelly down, or Patsy down to the bank of the river, and there was a boat there. And he put Patsy in the boat, took him back, and turned him over to medics on the other side, and came back. And came back up to the CP, which is where I met him after taking that patrol out. And and he should have gotten at least a Silver Star out of that, but nobody knew it. So who's going to turn it in? He's not about to turn it in himself, Yeah, but he should have been decorated. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Were you decorated?
But yeah, I got a Bronze Star. And really, that was for when you read it. Probably none of that much happened. I got the Bronze Star because I took the first patrol across Roar River. Right after we took Merkin, why, another guy, another squad leader, name was Weinfeld. He was German. I didn't like him. Neither did anybody else, to tell you the truth. He was, because he talked broken and he had a little mustache. But whoever was the lieutenant at the time, told us to take this patrol down and reconnoiter the bank. Well, we did, took it, never were fired on, and we got to the bridge, and it was I think it was, what did they call their superhighway system?
Autobahn?
Autobahn. It was an Autobahn bridge. And the bridge had they'd blown the bridge, but what the slabs that come down, the slabs had all fallen, so, you know, so stupid. So I said, well, cover me and I'll see if, you know, if it's possible to get across here. So I went up and down the slabs and got got to where I could see there were no gaps you could get across. And I turned around and came back. And so somebody turned it in. I don't even know who turned it in. You know, knew that I'd done that, turned it in, and I wound up getting a silver star, but they wrote it up. There's nothing in there about me taking the first. It's in Timberwolf Tracks. The book that they wrote is in there, but nothing in the I don't know, so much stuff about taking over for some men or something. But it's, anyhow, I got it.
Everything to add, Jim?
So the whole unit got a decoration for that action at the Roar River, that presidential unit citation.
Well, yeah, we got,
Yeah.
for crossing
So
the
that was-
river, yeah, there is yeah, right.
Quite
Yeah,
a-
the whole unit got it, that's right. Because that patrol that that we took out, Weingard and I took out, and then Weingard, they wanted somebody to go and cross the river. They wanted somebody to cross the river. And they told Weingard to, you know, because I'd already done it, so they took, and Weingard was supposed to take a patrol across the river and see what, you know, cross the bridge and see what was on the other side. I don't know what all the assignment was. Well, Weingard took them all and they sat down under the bridge for 2.5 hours and then came back. So, and then this other one that I said that we drifted under, that was a different bridge. That wasn't that moved south, I think it would have been. But anyhow, I don't know, somehow or other, after we went into combat in Germany, I wound up taking patrols out. I was assigned patrols to take all the time. I I don't know how that came about, but I did it. Wasn't always happy with it, but I did it. But anyhow, so they wanted on this other bridge that wanted me to take a patrol, so and see what would be. So I took a guy named Blackburn, and I took 4 or 5 others too. And I left them all right down below to cover us, and then Blackburn and I went up on top of the bridge, and I crawled out on it, and I got to the edge where it dropped off, and by that time I was smart, a lot smarter, but there'd been a civilian walkway across there, and that had dropped down, but hadn't been disrupted. That just led down to the. And I was looking at that and thinking, I wonder if I could get down there, and decided, no, I don't want to do that because I'm not going to get back up if I, go down there. And it was about that time that Blackburn was in back of me, and about that time, somebody must have known we were there because they started firing, and bullets were going over our heads. The tracers were going right over our heads, and this stupid Blackburn yells, "Hey Sarge, they're firing at us!" Jesus Christ, I could have turned around and shot him myself. So we crawled back and got the hell out of there, and but it was those patrols could get nasty at times.
Jack, how long was Maury in the hospital?
Yeah, to putting Maury back together, he was in the hospital over 2 years.
Oh, really?
Oh, he went from I'd go from one hospital to another. Yeah, he spent over 2 years. Various army hospitals getting put back together.
I think it finishes it. Thanks.